Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much for coming on a Saturday morning. I know that there's a lot of things happening in the Seattle area. But we're very fortunate we have Air Commodore Chishti who's going to talk to us about a number of different things and interesting things that have occurred in Pakistan recently. Before we start, just a few words about our sponsor, PICACS. Pacific Islamic Community and Cultural Services. Thank you very much for coming and showing support. As we all know, our organization is mainly designed to promote the Islamic values and also the Muslim community in the Pacific region. And we do a number of different things throughout the year. One of them is participation to show our face on 4th of July, and we also contribute to society by making sure that we're doing feeding the poor programs. Thanksgiving is one of the times that we do that. We also run a clinic, it's called the PICACS Clinic, and we provide about 6,000 hours of clinical service to patients in this area, and that is one of the major contributors to the funding of PICACS. Of course, we have people who also contribute to PICACS. It's a non-profit organization. If anyone wants to contribute, you're all welcome. And it's a good thing to contribute to the future generations and to make sure that other people also recognize that we as a community of Muslims are important and we contribute positively here. A few items of housekeeping before I go on to introduce Commodore Chishti. Please make sure that whoever has brought in food items, bottles, plates, we do need to take them out with us. It is one of those important things, the rules of Bellevue College. I think they don't allow food and drink inside, so we want to be very careful about not spilling things and making sure that we take our garbage out with us. I think that's all that I needed to talk about. But I do want to introduce Air Commodore Chishti. He's a former fighter pilot of the Pakistan Air Force, decorated soldier, Sitara Imtiaz military and Sitara Basalat for his distinguished service, over 3,000 hours of flying, and he has held key positions in the Air Force, including base commander of Korangi, assistant chief of air staff, and also Air Defense Command. He also is an alumnus of the Turkish Armed Forces War College in Istanbul and has been a faculty at the National Defense University and TF Air War College, as well as the Naval War College. He is a passionate researcher on Qaeda Muhammad Ali Jinnah and has delivered inspiring talks on multiple platforms, not only about Qaeda but also about the history of Pakistan Air Force. We do want him to come and give us some insight about what has happened recently. We all know, living here in America, in Seattle, we were reading what was happening in Pakistan very diligently, but what happened actually in the recent skirmish between India and Pakistan, I'm sure Air Commodore Chishti will give us more insight into that. Thank you very much. I know I would love to talk about myself even more, but I will pass it on to Air Commodore Chishti. Please come and take this lead. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable Airport Kamal sir, respected two brothers, famous Dr. Kamal and Kamal Mustafa, and especially because thank you very much for affording me the opportunity to come and speak to you on a topic which is obviously very close to my heart, and your presence and enthusiasm shows that it is as close to your hearts as mine. I'm truly grateful for you to spare your Saturday morning and come and join me. Let's start with something unusual. The room number is 234. This is the Indian Ministry of Defence, New Delhi. The month is first week of May 2025. When the Defence Minister of India is taking the brief from the Armed Forces Services Chief how and when to attack Pakistan, they are not aware of a factor which is about to unfold. And that was a silent storm heading towards India. In that storm, Pakistan Air Force Cyber Command was aggressively active, was trying to plan something to surprise Indian military. And what unfolded was against the Indian ID sector, with basically, before I move, what they were targeting at a country which had 28 billion of revenue through the IT only. They were also targeting India, which was 56% of international IT source country. A huge share that they had was the IT globally. This is the country which they were trying to hit. And what did they do? This was a soft kill through which they blocked 9,66,000 networks. This is before the war actually broke out. 507 critical data servers were hacked. Hundreds of websites hacked, data deleted. Railway communication and fuel system jammed. And the grid station of power supply networks were disrupted in the northern India. Now this all was happening on ground. But Pakistan Air Force has thought that we will go and punish those areas which the enemy is not thought about, number one, and which should cause maximum pain even before the war starts, which is going to hit the will of the people and the will of the government and will of the armed forces to fight the war against us. This was called the war prohibitive strategy. Now when the war broke out, what did they do? The same unit, the Cyber Command, what did they do? They carried out deception through the fake reporting in the air. The link between airborne early warning aircraft between Rafale and other jets were blocked or interrupted. The communication between the aircraft jammed, delayed or interrupted. This is what went on, and when all was done, there was a message which was displayed on those IT hubs which said, this is just a digital battle. The real war is yet to follow. Now the Indian did not probably expected that. And I must add here that this was done for a very short time when the railway, air traffic, grid station, the power supply, the fuel storage, they were out of order, most of them, especially in the northern India. And as we did not want to cause a safety hazard, because there were hundreds of trains, they got stuck, they were not moving because of lack of signals available. We didn't want to cause difficulty and discomfort to the hospital, the children and old men and women. So everything, after having done this soft kill, was restored. This is what your president called the new form of war.
Not my president.
That means the country's president. Okay. Did it all just happen? No, ladies and gentlemen. These young boys that I had the opportunity and honor to meet twice, once before the war and once after the war. Just a day before I came to US and Canada visit, I went to Islamabad for a briefing with Pakistan Air Force on how the war went on. Pakistan Air Force leadership was very kind to invite me to Islamabad, especially for a day, as they learned that I'm leaving for US, Canada to give a talk here, and later on some talks added because of your obviously invitation. This did not happen suddenly. It happened over 3 years. The boys that I met at Superiority Command were just about, I think, 25 to 30 years of age. And believe you me, I thought that these boys are so young that probably they, instead of university, they end up at this office today. These boys had been working for 3 years, collecting data, the information, the links, the content. Those who are from IT, obviously they'll bail me out, so I'm not a specialist, so I will skip this one. Let's go back into the history before we go to the war. The war lasted for 21 years. This is a historical war from 1954 to 1975. And the war resulted into 3.3 million deaths on one side and only 58,000 on the other side. Once I have said the year, you must have remembered or recalled. This was the war, which went on between USA and Vietnam. Vietnam lost 3.3 million people. America lost only 58,000. But the USA still lost the war. And we all want to know why. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that if your cause of the war fighting is unjustified, your war will be unjustified. And when your war is unjustified, the performance will be unjustified. Similar was the case repeated May this year. Because I believe the Indian had lodged offence which did not have sound cause. When they did not have sound cause, obviously the war was also unjustified. And when they did not have the war being justified, the performance of the armed forces was also not justified. On the other hand, Pakistan thought that we are fighting the war for self-defense, against aggression, for the sovereignty of our country, for next generation's well-being. So we thought our cause is justified, so our war was justified, and that is why our Alhamdulillah, performance was also justified. This is how let's start from Indian Air Force. This is the famous Rafale aircraft that they have, and we talk about it. Obviously, we all want to talk about it. Earlier, the Indian wanted to talk about this aircraft. Now they don't want to talk about this anymore. These are the air bases. They have about 52 air bases, almost most of them in the orange or red circle, all along Pakistani border. They have about 1,000 jet aircraft. This Rafale, they have total number of 36. They also have an old vintage, which is about 65 years old aircraft, which is MiG-21. This is the famous or infamous aircraft of Abhinandan. They are still operating this aircraft, which is 65 years old. This is Tejas aircraft they mostly talked about, but they did not show it up in the war. Tejas is a light combat aircraft Indians were making they are making class 40, 40 years. They conceived to make this aircraft in 1985. In 40 years, they have only 40 aircraft. Whereas Pakistan Air Force thought of having JF-17 Thunder. The reason was the American had blocked the F-16 supply to us in late 80s and 90s. So we conceived JF-17 10 years after Tejas was conceived. And in this war, there were nearly 200 JF-17 Thunders of parts in the war. Indian 40 Tejas aircraft were deployed here. You can see their relevance to Pakistan war. They never took part in the war. The other support aircraft they have are these. This is a BrahMos missile, famous, which they fired upon a number of our bases on the night of 9th May. This is a Barak MX air defense weapon. This is a joint venture of Israel and India, mostly Israeli. Obviously, this is a surface to air. And Brahmo, I forgot to say, mention that this also basically can be fired from the air, from the sea, or from the ground. Let's have a look at Pakistan Air Force. We were up with. We have, as compared to 1,000 aircraft Indian Air Force, we have about 400 aircraft. This is the person that we get the inspiration from. And I'm not saying as a token of respect. Dr. Jamal said I've been talking about this gentleman for the last about 20 years. I give lectures all over globally on this. Today is not the topic. But let me tell you the vision of this man. He was not a military general, no admiral, no air marshal. But look what he said during his last 13 months of his life when we became independent. Almost 7 months he spent in jail. He was sick and obviously unable to travel most of the time. But he chose to visit only one military academy, and that was Pakistan Air Force Academy. He had seen the word air power, World War II, the role of the air power. So he thought the air power has become so important, so he chose to visit Rasalpur, which was then the PF school. He upgraded it to college, and look what he said. Unbelievable. And you will probably, when you read this, you will think that he said it yesterday. He said, a country without a strong air force is at the mercy of any aggressor. Pakistan must build up an air force as quickly as possible. It must be an efficient air force, second to none. Look at the line. Last 3 words. Second to none. Alhamdulillah, today we have our tagline as Pakistan Air Force, second to none. Salute to these heroes. And we are fortunate to have one hero sitting amongst us, Air Commodore Sahab. And I'm sure he will call it a privilege to work with this great man. He was talking to me right before the talk started. He undoubtedly, I think, he'll support me if we call him the father of Pakistan Air Force. Since he was the first Muslim commander of Pakistan Air Force. And then the legacy went on to Noor Khan sir, Air Marshal Noor Khan, who happened to take over the Air Force Command just 2 months before the 1965 war, and obviously went ahead pitching against a huge country, obviously India. Ladies and gentlemen, let me recall and refresh your memories when after the war, 1965 war, soon after the war, Air Marshal Noor Khan was giving an interview to a foreign correspondent in which he asked him, what was your biggest difficulty during the war? And Air Marshal Noor Khan said, my biggest difficulty was not how to push my pilots into war, but my biggest difficulty was how to hold them back. And I can assure you, because I'm in touch with the Air Force, and the present Air Force Chief exactly had the same dilemma. Everybody wanted to go for flying. People were not packing up. Even if they spent their duty hours, they were asked to go and take rest and come back. They were hiding the other routes. So maybe some emergency comes up and I'm required to go and take off. This was the inspiration. This is the Noor Khan about which Isaac Weizmann, the commander of Israeli Air Force, later on he became Israeli president. In his book, he says Noor Khan was a formidable fellow and I'm glad that he was a Pakistani, not an Egyptian. That tells you the whole story. He is thanking that he is not my enemy. Kamal Sahab would recall it, Air Commodore F.S. Hussain. He was known as the Prince of the Air Force. He used to do the aerobatics for foreign dignitaries and kings and presidents and prime ministers whenever they visited Pakistan or whenever it was needed to go abroad. Once he did the aerobatics in UK, and the British Air Chief, said about him. He said a generation of pilots is yet to be born who will try to achieve standards already perfected by Flight Leftment FS Hussain of Royal Pakistan Air Force. So what I'm highlighting these two slides is basically to set the tone that this is the legacy, which is an obligation not only on Pakistan Air Force pilots, but technicians, air defense controllers, engineers, civilians, air traffic controllers, everybody. They live up to that. Now come to 2025 COP, in which obviously I must add here that I have been a faculty member at NDU Air War College, Naval War College, and I've studied all the wars and Kargil War 65, 71. I must assure you, fortunately, this was the best ever coordination between the three services this time. They were in cohesion, they had well-informed plans, and they notified to each other, this is what we're going to do. What we did on this, let me talk about first the aircraft. How many aircraft do we have? This aircraft is J-10C, the famous aircraft which shot down Indian aircraft. Now, this aircraft obviously has, I'll talk about it later also, that has a long range of 200 plus kilometers of missile range. It has a PF-15 missile which can shoot the enemy from almost 200 kilometers plus. And these are the other aircraft. We have F-16, we have J-17 Thunder, we have Rajas. And if you are unable to focus on the right bottom picture, let me zoom for you. This on the lighter side, just to break the seriousness. Okay. We continue with the Pakistan Air Force. As I said, 200 F-17 Thunder took part, and I was very fortunate to spend the day with these pilots a few weeks before the war actually broke. I must add here what Dr. Jamal said. I make documentaries of the Air Force, and that I've been doing for the last 6 years. And those documentaries, I talk about the heroes, the veterans, and Air Force was very kind to trust me with making a documentary on J-10C pilots and J-17 Thunder Block 3 pilots. Few weeks before the war, this war breakout, I had the opportunity to visit the operational base where these aircraft are housed. So I spent the day and to interview these pilots. This was first time ever Pakistan Air Force allowed. I didn't know at that time, obviously, the Pakistan Air Force leadership did not know that a few weeks or months down, these aircraft will be put to test. I had spent, as I said, the whole day with them. I made a documentary on this. This is the J-17 Thunder, and these are those pilots, obviously, those have shot down the enemy aircraft. So after having spent the whole day, I made the documentary, and I also made, I learned about these missiles and everything. This is the PL-15 missile, which is obviously being fired from this aircraft. More precisely, you can have a look at the weapon that was obviously caused this aircraft to be down. These are the two documentaries that I made of these, and this documentary about J-10C, and this is a documentary that I made just 5 days before this war broke out, and I could guess it's coming. So the title was Silent, Ready, Lethal, the PF story they won't tell you about. And it alhamdulillah touched about 1 million views. Let's talk about Pahalgam. You all know the history that you already know. I will not probably do much on that. Because of that, Pahalgam, the war obviously was mongering. The hysteria was created in India, and many people thought that it's coming any moment. This is that famous aircraft that we're talking about, and this is 30th April 2025, when that famous cyber command came into action. What they did was on 30th April, when they took off, they were close to Srinagar, when the cyber command came into action, and they did this. Through electronic warfare, they jammed the signal, they jammed their communication, they lost so much of confidence and trust in themselves and their aircraft and the mission. They had to force land at Srinagar without electricity. But there was no electricity because of our cyber command. They had to land in the dark. But probably the message or the capability of Pakistan Air Force was not well understood even by them. This is how the Indians come up with saying that we launched Operation Superiority. This operation was launched mostly by Rafale aircraft, focusing towards the northern Pakistan. This is Babarpur, up towards Kashmir. fell inside and they fired two missiles. I'll show you that. They fired about 100 to 125 kilometers, which is Shadow Storm is the missile which they launched. And obviously, they also fired some weapons from 50 to 70 kilometers while staying inside the border. They did not ever cross Pakistani international border, Indian Air. However, Pakistan Air Force had decided that whether the weapon or the aircraft violates our airspace, the response will be the same. That means the weapon will also be taken as violation of Pakistan airspace. This is how they went in. This is May 7th, almost midnight. For understanding, I have divided this chart into colors. Not that I believe that this is Indian territory, but for understanding, I have marked it in light blue. This is Pakistan, Pakistani and Kashmir, Indian and Kashmir, this is India. So that we can better understand. This is what is happening around 12:10 a.m. 7th morning. Ladies and gentlemen, our airborne early warning aircraft was writing air at 12 a.m. past midnight, and our Saudi formation was writing and doing the patrolling just as the air defense. And then they pick up that some aircraft are taking off from Haryana. This is a base which is housing the Rafale aircraft. So when they picked it up, this is how they went in. This is the missile that they were carrying, and they started to head towards Pakistan airspace. This is where the number started to increase. We started to log and circulate where are they, and gradually the situation went up like this. At one time, there were about 90 aircraft from India which were getting airborne sequentially, not simultaneously, just adding up to the formations. And this is the time Pakistan Air Force had to respond. And before I go over to the response, let me share with you what were these aircraft doing. The front aircraft were all Rafale aircraft. Why were the Rafale aircraft? A little technical, but I'm trying to keep it very simple. Because Rafale has the best missile range and the radar. It has about 150 kilometers of firing and shooting range. So they were in the front. Rest of the aircraft have about 100, 120, and they were put behind. So that any aircraft from Pakistan gets airborne at about 150 kilometers of distance, the Rafale should be able to shoot. So all formations were in front, aircraft were headed by the front was Rafale. Now, there are kind of four boxes that you can see. There are about 20-25 aircraft each. The distance between the two formations, within two, 1 and 2 is about 200 to 300 kilometers. And distance between this formation and this formation is about 900 kilometers. So this will tell you why were they doing this. They basically wanted to create a reaction dilemma to the Pakistan Air Force. Which one to go for? This is almost the whole Pakistan covered. Pakistan Air Force chose to make J-10C and J-17 Thunder and F-16 get airborne. And we could not go all sides, so we chose to go to the northern pair to engage first. And that fortunately turned out to be a very wise decision. This is how the thing was happening. We were heading towards north and engaging them. This is what I'm saying. These are the aircraft, Bravo 2000, Su-30, Rafale, MiG-29, and Su-30. And Pakistan Air Force composition was mainly headed by J-10C and the J-17 Thunder. Quickly, what happened was, let me share with you, that because the Rafale had 150 kilometers, the J-10C has 200 kilometers. So they had the advantage of not only first looking, first locking, and first shooting capability with J-10C aircraft. So they exploited those 50 kilometers. Informally, I can explain, and some obviously I can't be able to share the details. But they played on with that range. And please remember that CNN and many other channels reported that at any given time, at about 12:20, there were 125 aircraft on both sides. 125, 12 a.m. past midnight, never happened in the recent history of warfare. Please also note that there were 4 to 6 air-to-air beyond visual range missiles over 100 to 150 or 200 kilometers. On every aircraft, 4 to 6 missiles multiplied by 125. So there were more than 5 to 600 missiles beyond visual range up in the air against each other. I'm asking you to appreciate the situation. Now, BF aircraft obviously were first to lock and shoot the aircraft, which was a big surprise for Indian aircraft. If there are questions, then I can cover those details. If the fight ended up into this, different aircraft, let me focus on this. I will also share the number and the serial number, how many aircraft, little while closer. This is the closer. Now these are the aircraft, this is Rafale, the 2 is also Rafale, 3 is also Rafale, 4 is also Su-30, Mirage 2000, MiG-29, this is Israeli drone, is a weapon. All were shot down in the north. So with such huge loss, the Indians, the southern formation towards Karachi, they never dared to cross borders after they went back to the north. And fortunately it happened, the weapons which were being carried to be fired inside Pakistan were carried out by these formations which were deployed towards the north. This is a HQ-9B weapon, surface to air, which Pakistan Air Force had recently conducted about 10 months before this escalation, and it also cleared one aircraft from the ground. Point to note, ladies and gentlemen, was this intense fight, which we commonly mispronounce it, the dogfight. The dogfight was in MM Alam place, when two aircraft are looking at each other, they're fighting like dogs, and obviously shooting. This aircraft was, they're only looking at a small screen, or smaller than a laptop, and they're displaying all dots, 125 dots almost coming, and you have to decipher, identify, pinpoint, lock, and shoot. Hugely challenging. Now, our air chief, I have fortunately happened to meet him after and talk to him also. He said, my focus was to get the Rafales first, because that was a symbol of pride for Indian Air Force. And if you recall 2019, when Abhinandan aircraft was shot down, Indian Prime Minister Modi had wished that we had the Rafales. And these were the wish aircraft, the dream aircraft that they had. So he wanted to hit the pride first. And he had told the pilots that even if it's a MiG-29 lock and you are less sure about Rafale, go for Rafale. Many aircraft shooting down were missed out, I've been told now, were missed out for hunting Rafale. They let go the other aircraft, which is less important. They said, we have to go for Rafale. And that has sent the message clear. You've seen that after the war. They did not fire a single missile, the Rafales, on Pakistani aircraft. You'll be surprised. Because obviously they were not given the opportunity or a space to launch those missiles. For you all, I would like to share the safety report of Rafale. How many have been shot down since the aircraft was inducted into the service? This aircraft first flew in 1986. But because of lack of funds with the company, they kept delaying the launching of the product. Finally, Rafale was inducted into French Navy and not the Air Force in 2001. Since 2001, total Rafales which have been lost are 9. 2 met the mid-air collision. That means the pilots were doing aerobatics and by mistake went into each other. Obviously, that was the pilot factor or pilot fault. And both the pilots survived. The rest 7 aircraft, 6 pilots died with the aircraft. They did not survive. So I was taking out the average last 24 years since the Rafale has been in service, and I calculated that every 3 years, 1 Rafale was lost. I repeat, every 3 years, 1 Rafale was lost. I have friends in India, they got 3 Rafales destroyed in 1 hour. So that's the equation. Okay, the consequence to this killing, on 7th, the Indian Air Force was grounded. For 2 days, the Indian Air Force did not take off. They were doing a friendly flight close to Bangladesh and Sri Lanka border, nowhere close to us. From 10 to 18 May, Indian Air Force remained grounded. Some people ask me, even if some of you are following the media, Chief of Defence Staff of Indian Armed Forces, General Anil Chauhan. He gave an interview in Srinagar and said that we did lose the aeroplane to that part of the war. And on 7th, we realized that our tactics were wrong. And for 2 days, we kept the Air Force grounded and we improved our tactics and went up to create huge effects on 10th morning against Pakistan, or 9th night. And I've been asking a very innocent question. They're a country with 90 billion defense budget, with 1,000 fighter jets of 1.4 billion population. Do you buy this aircraft to be grounded during the war? And my second innocent question is that you want to engage Pakistan because you are a defense. You want to engage Pakistan Air Force, which has been either the highest alert or high alert. It was never on a simple alert. It has been on alert for the last 40 years. We never had a relaxing time or holiday move. You want to pitch your fighter jets against Pakistan Air Force, and then what? You want to improve your tactics during the war. That's shocking. Nobody does that. Absolutely. You don't improve during the conflict. Many people ask, and I give an example of Pakistan Air Force. It's like a football match. You have 90 minutes of football match. There are a lot of youngsters sitting here, and whether we call it soccer or football or whatever. It's a 90 minutes match, 45 minutes, 2 halves. Ronaldo is one of my favorite football players. And would you believe that in 90 minutes, Ronaldo gets the ball for only 1.5 to 2 minutes? 92nd to 122nd, he gets the ball. The world knows Ronaldo not because of the 88 minutes. The world knows Ronaldo only for those 2 minutes. Because he converts value through his skills, through his precision, sharpness, speed, agility, whatever you call it. Alhamdulillah, this is what Pakistan did. We are not known for 88 minutes. You got to be known for those 2 minutes. What did you do when you got the ball? And praise be to Allah. This was the Israeli drone, obviously, Indians were using against us. This was also the second Israeli drone that if there is a question, I can answer. But this is a drone which is obviously flies very, very low, close to the ground, does 2 things. One, that it extracts the data of the air defense from the ground and passes on to the parent unit. So if we had put the missiles, our weapons on alert through putting our radars on, it would have collected all the data of Pakistan air defense and sent it to India. So we were obviously in a dilemma. These are latest, but never in the history these missiles have been shot down. Pakistan did manage. If there are questions, I can do that. What the Indians did on 9th night is to hit 6 of our air bases. And one was Noor Khan Air Base. And this is the time we have thought that we have to retaliate. But why should they retaliate? Ladies and gentlemen, we went into to plot a war termination punch. Now, a little technical, but I'll try to keep it very, very simple. Basically, what we were looking for, we wanted either the war to be terminated or war to be escalated. Because Pakistan is probably not the most suitable country to fight a prolonged war. We do not have economy, we do not have military hardware, we don't have stamina. We had to fight a very punch, aggressive, all-out and bleeding kind of war. And this is what we did on 10th. So, we fired Al-Fatah missiles, hit out 16 air bases inside India. Whichever air base was facing Pakistan was hit out. Symbolically, not to destroy the base, but we showed our reach that this is where we can go. And this is the famous S-400 missile that we knocked out. Must have heard in the media those days that we knocked out this. Before I proceed, I must add here that this was a kind of one-way ticket and very suicidal mission that PF undertook. Because 400 in this name is of the range. This missile can launch at 600 kilometers and destroy a target at 400 kilometers. Now, if the PF aircraft had entered into 600 or 400, could have been hit by the missiles from S-400. Now, what did they do? Let me show you quickly without going into technical data. This is the layout. These are the tubes which have the missiles, and this is the command communication center. This is the radar that they have. These are the radars. Now, every tube, which I was mentioning in the previous slide, has missiles fitted in like this. And there are variety of radars, missiles which are there, starting with my 400 kilometer to 240, 200, 120. The computer center decides which is the most appropriate missile for which aircraft. Okay. What did we do? The PF did not go for missiles. The missile can be replaced. They went down to hit the radar, which is here. So these are the eyes of the radar. The eyes don't see them 400 kilometers. Then they say, this is what they take on that day. And obviously, we targeted fewer ammunition dumps and missile sites from a distance and did not cross that border. We remained inside and shot from there. You must have also heard that INS Vikram, who is a carrier aircraft Indian, was brought out, but was never deployed for the war. It was because of this aircraft. This is JF-17 Thunder. It has a special missile which can hit from more than about 150 kilometers. So because of the fear of this aircraft hitting that aircraft carrier, they never brought in this aircraft into the war. Total targets were hit on that night and morning were 34 inside India. The radar S-400 radar or missile sites were one at Bhuj and other at Adampur were hit. There are total 5 batteries that they have, Indians have. 2 are deployed against China, 3 are deployed against Pakistan. Out of the 3 we do hit, and out of the 2 we hit Adampur site twice to send the message and to make sure that nothing escapes us. Now, I must add here how much damage did we do in 5 hours time. Starting at 4 o'clock in the morning and almost till 9 a.m. We went out all out after they had attacked our air bases and dropped the tonnage, which was more than the 17 days of the war. What they did in 5 hours was more than this war, complete war. This was the level of punishment with this. And this is what I'm calling the war termination strategy. We wanted to inflict such heavy pain that either we go all out or the war will convert here. Okay. Now, why did we do that? Now, if American president is saying that both parties, I told them to do the trade with me and stop the war, and I have confirmed information that it was India who went to American president first to stop the war. So I'm waiting for President Trump to be angry enough to announce that who approached them first, and probably it is going to come soon when he will not be happy with India. He will say, these are the guys who came to me first. So they are waiting for that. Just wait and recall what I said in this hall. And on top of that, this is what happened, and this is how the Indian went out to stop this war. Let me do quickly analysis. The IF versus PF support. What happened was, people say, I'm talking about those who misperception have been created in your minds through media or false propaganda or whatever. Indians have said we were not fighting against Pakistan, we were fighting against China also. You must have noticed, who was following it closely. Okay, who's supporting Pakistan? Only China. Agreed. For the last 43 years, ladies and gentlemen, we have not inducted any aircraft from any part of the world except China. 1983-82, we inducted F-16. And we have not inducted any other country's aircraft except from China. F-17 Thunder and Latency. Look what the Indians have got from. They got Chinook helicopter and C-130s from USA. They got the drones and missiles from Israel. They got S-400 from Russia. They got Mirage 2000 and Rafale aircraft from France. Did we ever say that we fought against foreign countries? It is the peacetime what you do, ladies and gentlemen. I keep mentioning, I was talking to some friends in Vancouver the other day. I said, when Tendulkar or Kohli makes a century, you did not say that he borrowed my bat or he took that bat of that company. It is because that bat he made a century. The Kohli makes century because he's Kohli. You can't say that day he took my bat, so its credit goes to me. So credit is not good. You have to perform on that day what I said about Ronaldo. You got to convert your 2 minutes into value. This was a critical motivated agenda on the Indian side. That was one disadvantage. You remember I said in the beginning, if the cause is justified, your war will be justified, and if your war is justified, your performance will be justified. The good news for Pakistan Air Force was that Indian Air Force serviceability is 50 to 60%. Now, what's making it simple? Serviceability means if the war is declared today, out of 100, only 50 to 60 aircraft are available for war. This was a big advantage to Pakistan Air Force. Incorrect hypothesis. Hypothesis is when you start to make assumptions about the enemy. What will they do? Will they react? If they react, how much will they react? So it was incorrect hypothesis from Indian side that probably when we stay inside border, we do not violate the international border, we throw in the missiles and weapons, Pakistan Air Force or Pakistan will take it lying low. That did not happen. So I said they misjudged the escalation ladder, basically. They did not have the common operating picture. They were fighting, but I found as a student of strategy and air power, they lacked the connectivity between the deliverance, as I said. Ronaldo का फिर मिसाल आए Ronaldo passes and at the end who scores the goal does not matter till the time team scores the goal, but it has to be integrated. Analysis coming to Pakistan side, we build Tech West and subsequently I would believe the role of the leadership. I think this is the most critical aspect in warfighting, and this is always. This is AP Singh, Air Chief Marshal, Indian Air Force Chief. You can Google after this if you are still interested. February 2025, just 5 months back, what he said in a public seminar. I quote, pardon if I change a word here. He said, I need more platforms, which means aircraft, to stay relevant and to deter the enemy. February 2025. He's wanting more aircraft to deter the enemy and to stay relevant. Look at the helplessness. And he had grievances by saying that we had ordered 40 Tejas aircraft, famous Tejas that I talk about. 2016, we had ordered 40 aircraft. And in 9 years, we have not gotten a single aircraft. You see the element of discomfort here? When I met this gentleman, never had grievances. I had been meeting the team of PF different stations and I said, when are you going to complete this hall? When you are renovating this hall, when should it be complete? And they jokingly said, the search should have been done yesterday. This was our speed. He said, Air Chief is on our tail. Why did you do it yesterday? That kind of the urgency was there. So this was a big difference, let me tell you. Down the memory lane, just, I don't know how many years gone by, somebody can calculate, almost 40 years. I had the honor of serving with him in the same squadron. The young officer, he was there, and then I had the privilege of meeting him recently, before and after the war. This what I'm trying to tell you is, not that I'm trying to tell you, I'm trying to build my connectivity and relevance to the topic. So I learned from nobody less than the Air Chief himself. Fortunately, it's an honor. Pakistan had gone into indigenization. That was the most top priority subject of Pakistan Air Force. We had learned a lesson in 1980s that F-16 were held. We had paid America $650 million in those days. The F-16 were held because they said, okay, you are into nuclear proliferation program, which we had been for the last 10 years because as there was Soviet Union on the Afghan border, so we remained good guys for 10 years. And suddenly the Soviet Union left, and suddenly the America remembered that we are not the good guys. So we were put sanctions. We were asked to trade wheat, take the wheat instead of 650 billion fighter jets. So we learned the hard lesson, and thank you, America, obviously. We went into JF-17 Thunder making in 1995. Look at what the father of nation had said. When he went to Risalpur, this is another part of his speech. He said, aircraft and personnel in many number are little used unless there is a team spirit within the Air Force and strict sense of discipline prevails. I charge you to remember that only through discipline and self-reliance can the Royal Pakistan Air Force be worthy of Pakistan. What clear-headedness. And this is what we followed today. This is an example, JF-17 Thunder. Alhamdulillah, we were almost into negotiation. Some countries have been delivered this aircraft, and I have come to know it through my recent visit. There are a number of countries very keen to induct the F-17 Thunder. Obviously, the time is not right to share with you those numbers and details. We have been into modernization for many years. We've gone into unmanned aircraft. Those who follow General Bakshi, please Google. He is almost abusing his Air Force. That Indian Air Force has been sleeping over this topic, the unmanned aircraft. He said Pakistan Air Force was building unmanned aircraft. They built a huge fleet. The Indian Air Force has been sleeping on this because they did not. This was a huge advantage that we had indigenous. Surface to surface, I've talked about it. We had been practicing, ladies and gentlemen, large force employment, which is huge number of aircraft, huge, and fighting against a big number of aircraft. Recently, last year, we concluded an exercise, Indus Shield exercise 2024. There were 26 countries participating. I had the opportunity and honor to visit Sargodha. And when I attended one of the briefing, there were 70 to 80 aircraft pitched against about 40, 30. I actually saw them doing this in peacetime, not when the war broke out. The focus of integration, I said, it's orchestration of the war these days. It's not that how many aircraft you send in the air. How integrated fleet, a band of fighters do you send up in the air, and how well are they connected with the ground defense assets? We got to integrate. Please remember. It has to be orchestrated. It's like a music, ladies and gentlemen. Somebody playing music at the back, one is out of rhythm, you would know that. It's a rhythmic war these days. You have to orchestrate. You have to build in confidence, trust, integration, communication, and then obviously the blow that you do to the enemy. And obviously we have to have these days a kill picture. Kill picture is the goal that I was talking about in football. You go take the ball from here, dodge everybody, reach here and do this. Now everybody in the team has to know who's to be given a pass, who's to go forward, who's to move forward, who's to go to the enemy goal, whatever. It's a kill picture. The clearer the team, the whole team I'm talking about, from air traffic controller, the air defense controller, the weapons, the engineers, airborne early warning, the jammers, the satellites, and the space force, whatever. The more integrated that forces, you will have more clearer picture or kill picture, and more successful you would be. Okay, at the end, ladies and gentlemen, let me clear some misconceptions before I leave. And the misconceptions are that some of our media, and in America I would not like to even take the names, but some of our media, they came on the television through the channels and said that China had jammed all Indian radars and then asked Pakistan Air Force pilots to go and attack India. I repeat, China had jammed. So I contested during those days. I was regularly appearing almost even during the war, and they escalated. I was on the channel for almost 40 hours. I did not sleep, back to back. And I denied this. I had met those cyber command warriors. And I said I would never let anybody take the credit away from these youngsters. These were all done by Pakistanis, which I mentioned at the beginning, ladies and gentlemen. They were all done by the expertise, the beautifully choreographed skill that they had, and this was all done by nothing was done. Yes, no doubt that China had given us a lot of equipment before the war, as did France, as did Israel to India. So it's employment, how do you use it? So another misconception is how this aircraft would enter Pakistan. And in those days I said, and I was proven right in Iran-Israel war. I had said that there is no weapon in this world which is perfect and which can 100 for no country is so secure, including US, Russia, and country, which can prove and claim that we are impregnable and not penetratable. And people thought, oh, well, we should have stopped. And then they saw Iran-Israel war. And I said, Israel was the most well-equipped country in the world. They also had the missiles coming into them. And if you want data, I can share it with you. Now, 78 years, this country has given military aid to Israel in the tune of $260 billion in the last 78 years. US has given the aid. The next country comes is Egypt, 50 billion against 250. If you compile the whole military aid to the whole world, what the US has given, the Israeli aid is more than that. Even that country was not safe. That's what I'm trying to bring up. I'm not trying to defend this. There is another misconception that these two aircraft are not used in the war. This is a Mirage. I have got 1,000 aircraft of this, and this is F-16. They were used, but you have to put the best people depending on the scenario. F-16 on that day was available in the air because it had less than 100 kilometers of range. So it could not be pitched against an aircraft which had 150 kilometers. This aircraft would have been shot down. So you know, we have a Pakistani nation has a romance with this aircraft. ट्रकों के पीछे भी F-16 ही होगा, जेटर जितना मर्जी मिसाइल फायर कर. We still have romance with this aircraft, F-16. So we were very careful not to lose an F-16, obviously, at the cost of anything. So another misconception, जैसे कि चाइना ने बड़ी मदद की, चाइना ने मैंने पहले थोड़ा सा क्लिक किया. I've said कि China had done a lot of favor to us, no doubt about it, but we did everything. At the conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, I would say that this is a flawed political approach in planning for the limited punitive strike rather than a real fight against the responsive enemy, which was Pakistan. Indian Armed Forces lacked needed innovation, underestimating why PF in particular. PF new elections were ignored or underestimated. Rafale wasn't lost because it's a poor plane. Most modern, non-stealthy planes might have met the same fate in the given situation because that aircraft had not been integrated. That underestimation of Pakistan tri-service coordination and ignored multi-domain operations and integration. And that brings me to the end, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for being very attentive audience. And I once again like to offer my gratitude to all of you for coming on a very busy Saturday morning. Obviously, there are a lot of activities these days. I heard in Seattle. I'm grateful you found time to come and join for this session. And I once again like to thank Dr. Mustafa Kamal, sir. I'm really honored, sir, with your kind presence also and with your kind invitation. And you've been following my traveling. Dr. Saab has told me that you were very eager to that. That's an honor and privilege, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
If you can come in the light.
Wow.
You have been dark.
Okay, so I would like to thank Aircraft Chisti. Thank you, Aircraft Chisti, for such a wonderful presentation. If anyone has any questions, this is the time to ask questions.
I don't know. Okay. Now you are back. I'm the focus.
Thank you. It was an excellent presentation, and I think the nation has always been very proud of Pakistan Air Force. In 1947, they refused direct order of Qaid-e-Azam to go in Kashmir, and then in 1948 they lost the Kashmir war against India. In 65, they lost 2,000 kilometer territory, lost the war to India, which was given in Tashkent as a ceasefire agreement. 71, they lost half of Pakistan. And then again, Siachen, they lost. So pretty much every war they have lost. My question to you in this background is that our Shaheens, our pilots in this last three wars, just like in 65, just like in 71, they shot down, they actually grounded Indian Air Force. They shot down, Indian planes. Munir never left home. He was staying in his home. Then why the hell did he get Field Marshal? What did he do in the war? What is his contribution?
Thank you for that question, but I would like to make a comment. Please keep the questions relevant to the topic at hand. I don't know if Aircraft Chisti would be competent to talk about how his scope of lecture. But let's ask.
First of all, let me clarify that I did not sign his promotion letter. That's one. The way you said, I thought that did I sign something or I signed it blindly without knowing what was written anyway, number one. And number two was that I thought people were in a good mood today for the change. You can be 364 days, you can be in a bad mood and keep thinking 71, 65, land, East Pakistan lost, Kargil done, whatever. So I tried to make the mood a little more cheerful. I thought so. And then if you want to take it back there, that's your call. Obviously, taking this, Dr. Saab has rescued me already by saying that if I focus, because had I been in part of the government or if I was Prime Minister, he would ask me why did you give Field Marshal or whatever. So as I'm confining to those heroes, obviously, I don't want to undermine their performance. So if you allow me to skip. वो बचपन में नहीं कहते थे कि थोड़ा सा सर ये हमारा इसलिए फेल हो गया कि आउट ऑफ सिलेबस सवाल आ गया
There used to be a saying in Pakistan that Pakistan is always being protected by Allah, the Air Force, and artillery. The three A's. I think it still might be there. We have a question now.
All right.
Thank you.
My question is, what you said in was, what are the lessons learned from this war?
Yes.
So what are the lessons learned from this war? Like talk about, yes, Pakistan, you could say, is a victory here, but our enemy, India, we should not be saying that, is the number one enemy of Pakistan. They are also preparing. Okay, we showed all our strength this time around, with amazing, cyber tech, let it be, using all these intelligence, whatever we can to have, upper hand. But our enemy has so much more. Their best friend is now USA, Britain. We have only one friend, China. So moving forward, what is there any plan? You're not getting any F-35 from USA. You will still have this Chinese technology, which proved very well this time. But next time around, what's the plan?
I think that's a very pertinent and relevant question. And it must be a question almost on behalf of the audience because everybody wants to know what next. I totally agree with you. I had the honor of, as I said, visiting PF just before I left. This is on the 10th of this month. And I was pleased to know when I met these cyber command warriors, these youngsters that I'm talking, let me start from there. I had another visit. This is my second visit to Cyber Command, and I asked the Air Commodore who was heading that. I said, what next? You've done the damage, the grid station, the power supply, and whatever. And sir, he said this is behind us. We are talking about tomorrow now. We are not using any tactics what we had. We are updating our data. I had the opportunity to speak to the Air Chief, and he said that it's behind us. We are formulating where did we go wrong. Obviously, it's a lesson. We are not saying it's all perfect. We still have to. But what I'm trying to give the argument was that even Israel was penetrated with 260 billion of military aid from only United States. I'm not defending, but that's a ground reality. PF has already negotiated. The Air Force Chief has had a visit to US. I don't know how many of you are familiar. US. And then he went to China. And now he's going to UK. At no stage we are bought out to China. Let me clarify. I'm not saying that, okay, nobody will be happy. We will go for the best. We will go for the vacuum filling. We will go for the back gaps. So PF is in very aggressively because they have to live up to the expectation. सबने कहा और सबने कहा कि Air Force is लोगों का अल्लाह के बाद Air Force पे trust है. So we will continue. And at the moment, last 3 years or 3 years, PF had 19 new inductions. JTNC was one. Cyber Command. Many more. At the moment, I can tell you there are about 18 being deliberated again. More dimension. That what can we add now to surprise the enemy? Unfortunately, because of security reasons, I cannot be able to share all with you what's going on. But they are very, very mindful that it's behind us. We are not celebrating for another 10 years and saying that, okay. Because I keep telling, somebody asked me that how JTAN would be relevant, not relevant, how long. And I give the example that I was a young officer, newly commissioned, 21 years, 22 years. No laptops were there, only a desktop computer was there. I wanted to buy a computer for myself. And I asked an IT expert of those days, and I said, when should I buy a computer? He said, the best time to buy a computer is tomorrow. IT guys would know that. He said, what is available is obsolete. So this is what we believe, that what we use today is over. We're going to go for tomorrow. So I think, rest assured, I want to, that this is a good question. I thought I will set aside if there is any misperception that we sleep operators start to celebrate for a couple of years. No. There are many meetings going on every day. The Air Chief is still sitting in the office almost till 2 o'clock. Like AM I'm talking about. He's working the post-war now. Sir?
Hello. My question is going back to China.
Sorry?
Going back to China issue.
Sure.
The news that we got here right before, like a week or two before the war started, China supplied Pakistan with PF-15 missiles.
PF-15 air to a missile.
Yeah.
PF.
Yeah. And then that's their, not PF-15E, but the PF-15 from their own inventory. What prompted China to send those missiles to Pakistan? And was there any chance of this conflict turning into a nuclear conflict? Was there any talk about that?
Let me share a good news with you. That we only had PF-15 what we fired. So there was no supply that just came in last night and the next day we fired. PL-15, the most modern missile, not the export version, we had the actual one the Chinese were using from the beginning. Okay. So the Indians mistook it that we have the export version and probably they were shocked and surprised. That's one. एक और चीज मैं भूल ना जाऊं ऐड करना when I visited airport, I'm not trying to brag, but PF is now saying, and not officially claiming, but unofficially I was told that there are 4 Rafales which have been lost. They have the tail numbers of those aircraft, and they asked that India, we can challenge India to bring more, because our sources have confirmed that 4 Rafale did not go back and land. We have the tail numbers also. Yes.
My question is also sort of on the technical aspects of
Sure.
this war.
Sure.
So one of the things, some of the analysis that we have seen, they talk about the close integration, or like at one end, PL-15, the air-to-air missiles, and then we had the Thunder JF-10, and they have attributed, the success of Pakistan Air Force to the fact that we had been getting the equipment from the same sort of manufacturers or from China. There had been very close integration between the planes and the missile network and all that, compared to sort of the diverse set of equipment that was there on the Indian side. How do you see that? Is there some sort of technical appeal in it?
I could focus on this. Are you saying that JF-17 Thunder? Can you explain a bit of which area do you want me to focus on?
I think the idea was that there was because all of this war is doing things in real time. As you said, that it's all about orchestration. So having that orchestration in real time really benefited from the fact that most of the equipment, ground equipment, air missiles were all sort of coming from the same source, and so they were very tightly integrated from a communication perspective, and that's sort of supported.
Okay. I think the most successful key in this group has been integration. They had been rehearsing for many days, many weeks, many months. It was not only deployment and they suddenly picked up with integration and they thought that we are going to be integrated and let's fight the war. It doesn't happen like that. It's like a cyber command. You have to rehearse, you have to give the enemy. You'll be surprised that what they were doing to the enemy, the jamming part, the Rafale jamming, you heard the leader out of panic giving a call, where's number 4 and things like that. We create the same situation against our own fighter aircraft. In friendly peacetime, not in the war. We tell them this is jam, you can't communicate, fight. So that's an advantage that you have. You have to create a real war-like scenario. Only then people will not panic. Obviously. And if you do not have it, integration does not mean the fighter aircraft. Inter-aircraft means the airborne early warning, the jammer, the ground defense, the weapons, the satellites. You have to depend and then you have to deny it. First, you have to say that this is how to orchestrate, and then we say, okay, the space is gone. Okay, the jammers are gone. Okay, the airborne early warning is not anymore there, and there's a jamming inducted into your file. So they were doing the real-time integration. That's why, alhamdulillah, I'm just analyzing as a student. I'm not taking for bragging. They were taking every day, every mission. What I have been attending the briefing to, they were actually simulating everything. This factor gone. This is factor. This is nil factor. We got a nil factor. That means this is not there with you. Okay, do it now. Just like tying one arm at the back. Now fight with the left hand. Then they have to fight with this hand. Or something like that.
मेरे आपसे 2 questions हैं. First about the rate of human casualties. Second one is about the pictures that were shared on social media regarding people catching the drones. I think it was posted on social media. So if you can discuss a little bit of that.
Okay, मैं वही डाल देता Pakistan में very interestingly, it was a festive mood. मैं खुद भी हैरान हुआ. I live in the Kent. I live in Gulberg, and my wife woke me up. There's something falling down. Something like I rang up somebody and asked them. They said these are the drones coming from India. और शाम तक लोगों ने social media, वो कहते हैं reels डालने, they start to celebrate, making still picture, Facebook भरा हुआ है. I don't know, this is unique to this country. That जहाँ तक कोई और fake आपने कौन सी तस्वीरें कही है?
जिसमें बच्चे जो है वो
This is true. This was the truth. This was amazing. This is unprecedented that even the military was running around to secure them or defuse them. But before, obviously, they would fall, and obviously, army personnel or soldiers cannot reach immediately. They would take few hours. By then, the social media was up, showing those children that we got this and we brought this, and they were searching, "Ki ye piece kaun leke chala gaya?" So that was, I think, a very innovative, unprecedented, unheard of. ये अच्छा सवाल आपने किया. कमिंग फ्रॉम लेडी शुगर, पहली दफा किसी लेडी ने पूछा है, मतलब बात पूछते हैं तो लड़की कहाँ गई. This is for a change coming from lady. It's impressive. I was on a channel. Let me tell you a joke. I was on a channel and somebody asked me, Airport Saab, you are well informed and you have the inside story. At least you should be able to share. What about that lady? And I literally had a little laugh and said, "You laughing?" And I said, when Abhinandan was caught by us, you never asked a question. Now there is a lady and everybody's asking, where is that lady? So there is no lady. वो propaganda चाहे हमारा है या किसका है? अभी नहीं आई, कोई नहीं आई. For sure there's no awareness. जी.
This might be a little bit more political in perception than military. The word on the street is that this war was actually between USA and China won. This does not take away from the PA performance of obviously because they are the one who fought. But this is exactly how it's being. What's your
Indirectly, I hinted at that, but we've been depending on China for the last 43 years. We got only F-16 and 40 years. We have no new aircraft being inducted from any other air force. No new weapons except Turkey. The drones have been from Turkey. But America has been aggressively taking part. But probably the Americans have also understood now the Indians have been exploiting their situation and twisting everybody to get the weapons, Russia and Israel and America and all those countries. So they keep obviously gathering that. But we never said even once that we were fighting against America, we were fighting against Israel. We have confirmed sources that Israeli operators were operating from India. The drones were being operated by the Israeli experts. We never complained. That's part of the war. Let anybody come. It's only from them. An unfortunate part is because they are not even giving numbers. So on the lighter note, I don't know, all of you understand. I said it's like India sending a World Cup cricket team to World Cup final, and they reach final and they come back, lose, and the Indian people ask them, what scores did you do? What cricket man? So they said, we will not tell you the scores. He said, how many wickets did you down Pakistani side? I said, we will not tell you the wicket. But look at the lesson that we drawn from next World Cup. So you have to fight today's World Cup, and that's what it matters the most. You have to win it. So I think propaganda can be any, but we don't count into it which side lost. We did our preparation. The weapons, obviously, we are more dependent on China, but there is a lot of indigenization going on. Inshallah, you will be surprised in the coming days and coming months or years. Inshallah, what we have engineers and technicians and scientists are doing, they're doing wonders. And we are reducing our dependency because we know that nobody likes, or majority of the world, I believe 95% of the world does not like us to be loaded with a lot of new weapons. So we have to depend on ourselves.
What I was going to say was, the Pakistani call is a phenomenon. I mean, we weren't scared of COVID. I mean, this was a simple joke. So here's my question. Leadership does matter. And it demonstrates final outcome results. So we have 3 armed forces at the war, armed forces work together. So can you highlight the leadership visions or how they coordinate overall leadership plan? One armed force can't do this. We all coordinate.
I totally agree with you. The question, what came from him was that army chief never got out of the home. Usko main thoda sa address karta. Irrespective, I'm not going into politics. The army chief was twice in the Air Force operations room for 2 nights. The air chief was once out there. The air chief did not go home for 2 weeks. That's the leadership I'm talking about. He slept on the sofas and left, right, here and there. And the people told me, the air chief never told me that I did not go home. That people told me that he's not going home, and we told him that go and sleep, have some sleep. So he used to counter question that when as air chief I know that Indians can hit any time, would I be able to sleep? So he was there most of the time. If he's sleeping for 1 hour, they will go quiet and not talk much, so they can catch up on sleep. People tell me his eyes were red. He was not eating whatever was offered, chai, biscuit, biscuit, chalta रहता था. That's a resolve that you have. Sir se पूछे, I don't think an air chief needs to be sitting in the operation room the whole night, and this is exactly paid off. The fight that I was talking about, which went on for 1 hour, he was actually controlling remote control. He briefed me later on what went on. He was actually monitoring our own 42 aircraft, every aircraft, telling them pull back, pull him back, put him into behind. This like that's it, wrestler thing. He was controlling that. He was trying to this time. He was even telling me that I got sometimes angry that why are they putting deep into the enemy because our aircraft is going to be shot down. I had to yell people to pull back because fighter pilots are also excited that probably I'll go and shoot first because in the bargain when he knew that this can be shot by that aircraft or another aircraft that he's not watching, he had to yell him to pull back. That's why it is 6-0. Obviously, could have been. Obviously, it's not a robotic machine. It's a real 125 aircraft fighting in the air at night loaded with missiles. So I think leadership played a huge role.
But how about encompassing the decision between all the things?
I think apart from the politics, there was a great element of realization, and I'm happy. I have been teaching in NDU, Air War College, Naval War College that there were least integration in the previous wars. Kargil Air Chief and Naval Chief were not even told something like that. That was the level of integration. Okay. Now this, he was telling me that the Air Chief told me himself that I had told Army Chief on the 10th of morning that just hold back, I'm going to hit them very hard. Now that was the level of understanding between them. After बात ठीक कही कि Army fired only Alpha के होता है. They did not advance tanks or whatever. Air Chief did that, but Army Chief was totally impatient, absolutely impatient. सब घर से भी एक माइक
जी वो बाय द वे वो वाला जो क्वेश्चन था वो रिटोरिकल क्वेश्चन था मैं जवाब एक्सपेक्ट नहीं कर रहा था मुझे पूछना ये है कि आपने उसके जो स्क्रमिश हुई थी उसके आफ्टर मैच में सुना था कि पाकिस्तान इज गेटिंग अपग्रेडेड इक्विपमेंट लाइक KJ-500 AWACS from China and HQ-9 instead of 90 which is a much bigger range and they're like a mapping third और इसके अलावा J-35 stealth. Is it all happening as we speak? मैं तो ये भी हमें पता चला था कि J-35 पे तो PF pilot are already training. So can you confirm any of that?
Thank you. Very relevant question. PF is into मैंने थोड़ा सा hint करा था, I'll explain. मैंने कहा था PF is into intense engagement with USA and China both. जो F-35 American है, that cost Indian ने calculate किया था. The Indians have not bought that aircraft still. We must have heard that they were offered that America can offer F-35 to India. No, I'm coming to that. The aircraft cost about 30 lakh rupees one mission. F-35. The Indians did not go for the sake of that. Now, there are 5 stealth aircraft in this world. Only 5. Available. Rest are in the process of making or struck research or whatever. American F-22 Raptor and F-35. Chinese have Su-57. Russians have Su-57 and the Chinese have J-20 and J-35. Okay. Now you're talking about J-35. We cannot confirm at the moment whether the pilots are training or not. But PF is into serious negotiation for going into stealth. Because India has already gone for it, or at least the intention they've cleared that we will make it. But at the time, I cannot confirm it to you which aircraft are they going for, but they're extensively evaluating. But let me also, as a student of military strategy or history, can say we can still not get bogged down to China alone. We should guess the best what we need, not what China is offering. Only that we'll get. That's why the air chief came to US. That's why he wants to. Everything counts. Everything counts. Lekin 19 inductions have been in this country, Pakistan, In the presence of the COVID, in the presence of the threat that we are going to get defaulted tomorrow, maybe, you should appreciate that at least. What did we do? Where did we do? That's another topic. जी भैया we are into negotiation. जी जी मैंने ऐसा किया कि I cannot confirm, but I can say that serious negotiation. Yeah. जी. Sure, please. And thank you for a wonderful dinner yet again. I must publicly acknowledge it.
This is why I was going to avoid asking you this question, but
Right.
now I have to.
You have privilege.
I had the pleasure of visiting Gujarat in 2022 with my husband, and I was very fascinated by the whole thing, the data system, and where they can track incoming and outgoing of the flights, and also the Air Force. So my question is, since they have such a nice way of finding out who's coming in and out of the territory of Pakistan, how did they miss out on tracking down those Indian Air Force planes coming inside Pakistan using that kind of technology, which I'm telling you about in Shira? So can you please enlighten me on that?
So that's a good.
Thank you.
That's a good question. Let me clarify. My fault in case I did not clarify this. None of the 90 aircraft entered into Pakistan space. No, absolutely not. As I said at the slide, one aircraft fired about 100 to 125 kilometers from the target. They fired the missiles, and the other weapon they fired from 50 to 70 kilometers inside the border. None till today, while we're talking, not a single aircraft has entered into Pakistan airspace. That's one. The weapons cannot be stopped. What happens? This weapon, what Shadow Storm missile is, this missile is called SLAM, the French name. This is Shadow Storm. What it does is that the moment this is dropped from the aircraft, maybe 40,000 feet, it dives down and goes to the tree level. Yeah. It hops the terrain like this. It will go up and down like mountains like this. And it is so low that it cannot be picked up by radar. Any radar in the world. I'm not talking about Pakistan. So it continues to follow the contours of the globe, and then when it reaches the close to the target, what it does is simply pulls up, very steep, goes to about 40,000 and dives down, and then correlates the picture that was given to this data and what the radar sees. If you have to set the screen from 40,000, it will say, okay, this screen was given to me, this is the screen which is matching. So here I go and hit. So it's too short a notice for this aircraft, this weapon alone to be hit. It's not a very big aircraft because we got it the diameter or section through the radar picks up. Even if it is picked up, it is too late. But no aircraft ever entered. The good news is that Pakistani drones were loitering over Gujarat and Delhi also. Let me also make it clear. And then we took it that if by mistake these aircraft are obviously fallen down, they may not fall in the Indian Parliament or Modi's house in Gujarat. So they were diverted elsewhere towards the open farms and they were destroyed there. And sending a message that we can reach, that's about 700 kilometers. Yeah.
I had a question. So, actually,
Sure.
yep. So, I think there's no doubt the outcome of this battle was very favorable to us. Just the pessimist in me is thinking, if I think 10, 15 years ahead, especially like when we heard news like India is looking at procuring Su-57 along with the source code. So it seemed like the history may repeat itself where like we focused on imports and India focused on internal manufacturing. So like 10, 15 years from now, like a pretty bad scenario for us would be we're still actually dependent on imports and India is actually making fifth generation aircrafts inside their territory. So curious to know your thoughts.
When you pass a judgment or make an opinion or obviously want to conclude things, you might have to look at the track history of that country or that organization. When you even order an Amazon, you have to see the track history of Amazon. Should I order through Amazon or elsewhere? The track history tells you many things. In my presentation, if you remember, I said that you have to have the industry, the infrastructure. It's not a wish list. It is not a refrigerator that you can just pull out an air conditioner. Okay, this room is hot, so let's have to put air conditioner here. So tomorrow you will have this room is cool. It does not happen that. You have to build infrastructure. You have to develop the skill of the people. You have to build the hardware in the country, and only then you can come out with the aircraft or any missile or whatever. The Indian record about Tejas that I shared with you, with the aircraft which was conceived 40 years back, and they still had on 40 aircraft, not worth the war after 40 years. Look at Pakistan, 200 aircraft conceived after 10 years, were into the war. So the track history tells me it's not easy. What the reason? Not that Indians are bad, not the Indian Air Force is bad. I must clarify the Indian Air Force is very professional, no doubt. I respect that. Rafale's aircraft is very good, no doubt about it. I'm standing here confirming it to you. However, look at the helplessness that the air chief that I shared with you, the leadership. Pakistan probably does not have, good or bad, there are good side and a bad side also, does not have the bureaucratic chain that long. It does not take you 5 years or 3 years to get the budget release. If it has to be done, it has to be done. But in India, obviously, you already know. The air chief telling in February this year that 9 years I'm waiting and not a single aircraft got. Whom is he talking to? The President Trump? Look at the element of helplessness of the Air Force chief. May 30th May 2025. Let me share another press conference with you. He said, when I'm signing, no, Indian Air Force chief said, when I'm signing the contract, I know this product, the missiles, the weapons, whatever, will not be delivered on time. But I still sign. You see the element of discomfort. He's accepting it. That shows the mindset. If people are out to support you, integrate and deliverance, when I said, I have seen people, I'm not saying PF is doing everything right. PF is visionary, PF is a supersonic speed. What I'm saying that I meet people like this, when I meet them and I said, when do you complete this setup? They jokingly, many people said, sir, should have been done yesterday. That means the air chief is after us. He's asking every day, what's happened? Screen is on, chairs are on, air conditioner, multimedia is on, chasing them. Because I'm sure he must be generating sources for them. Only then you can ask them to make the deadline. The air chief himself is saying that, well, when I'm signing, I know that this will not be done. But I sign. So you have to see the track record, the trends, and the facts on the ground. Probably. I don't think even if they want to make a stealth aircraft, they're claiming not 20 years, 15 to 20 years. They're saying 5 years. I don't believe that. They just should have been in the air, should have been half the Air Force. Out of 1,000 aircraft, they are only 40 aircraft in 40 years. That's not a probability. Sir? Sir, sure, sir.
You want mic? Thank you very much. You all have other commitments.
One last question.
We will allow the last question.
Okay.
We want to thank you also, but I want to remind everybody one thing. Please remember, the grandmother doesn't work here. The cleanliness of the table is your responsibility. Whatever you got inside, please take it out when you're going out.
Okay.
But first thing, Sikandar Das can have the last question.
In fact, I had two questions, but I'll make it one. Okay. So I learned a lot that Rafael has, being a very super aircraft, okay, has a very good jamming and anti-jamming facility also on board. Okay. So I was just wondering that how this jamming, which was done by the PF warriors, were able to affect their jamming capabilities.
I think so. That's a very good question again, and obviously it had to come from you with your rich background in the PF. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the most critical thing. It was not only the jamming part. We were spoofing, sir. We were jamming. We were degradation. We were blocking the communication. We had connectivity with the satellite, with the ground radar. We were jamming everything. We trying to degrade their situational awareness. Now, what is situational awareness? Situational awareness is that I'm sitting in the cockpit. I have an intention to complete the mission with this speed, this time, with this coordination, with this support. Now, suddenly you start to block my communication with my buddy, or delay it, or spoof it, or pause it. I want to fall back to my ground radar, and exactly you do the same thing with them also. And what am I thinking? Something is wrong somewhere. My buddy is not responding. My guy on the ground is not responding. I call my other guy, and he's calling back after quite a bit of delay. So makes me uneasy. 4 Rafale aircraft on 30th April took off and exactly faced the same problem. And 2 had to land during an emergency at Srinagar. But what PF had done was shake their confidence. That you could be the next Abhinandan. If that's the feeling that you create in the mind of the fighter pilot, obviously he gets shaky that should I continue mission? My guy is not responding. I'm not getting support from the radar is not updating me. So probably it was a complete package in other words. It was not simple jamming. और एक और इन्होंने काम किया था, I can share with you a little confidential, that it is not a must that you fire a missile from here, lock this is J-10C and this is Rafale coming, you lock and you shoot. It could be another aircraft which could guide this is the position, shoot your missile and the rest will be guided through both of them. So this aircraft is not locking this aircraft. This is giving the information. And this is jisko kehte hain proximity, let this missile go. And then we later on guide when at the terminal station it reaches course. They had done a lot of intelligent work, and that too in peacetime. Shouldn't have been done on that day, obviously. But it's a very loaded question that how did they manage? It's not one side. It was a multi-dimensional approach, which they made sure that their confidence is obviously shaken in themselves and their buddies. PF had practiced this. Yeah. जी sure. वो सर ने मना किया बट उनसे ज़्यादा
people have other commitments.
I can talk to you. I will take this.
If there are any other questions, maybe inform me as
We can do these questions tomorrow.
we can